Thank you, Molly. Thank you. Good afternoon. So my name is Pierre. I'm a French person, obviously. I'm based in Paris. I'm the founder and CEO of Open Classrooms, which is an online education platform. So I'm going to share with you our story, what our mission is about, give you some insights about our product, what we do, our partnerships with public institutions, public employment agencies, with universities, with employers, or more details about our education to employment programs and the pedagogy behind them, and talk about our recent developments, and especially in the US. If you have any questions, please do interrupt me. Raise your hand, and we can make that a more interactive session. So let me know. So the story of Open Classroom started 5 years ago in 2013 as a company, but it's been actually a much longer journey since we started in 1999 with my friend, the other co-founder. His name is Mathieu, and we were very young. We were in middle school. In 1999, we were 13 and 11 years old. We started to create online courses to help some friends to code and design websites on HTML. So it was pretty basic, but my friend Mathieu started to write a course on HTML, and he wanted to share it to friends, and he just published that online. It was like the easy way to do that, and then friends liked it, they shared it to other friends, and finally we kept on creating new courses and publishing them online for free. Since then, we created new features and developed this online learning community for many years, over 10 years, in middle school, high school, college, just kind of as a hobby. It was nothing commercial, not a company at all, but it became more and more famous. At first in a niche market around IT-related skills in French-speaking countries. At the end of that time, we used to have roughly 100,000 learners every month on the website. So when I was in college, actually I had some friends. I studied engineering. Some of my friends didn't attend classrooms because they actually went to this website to learn like programming languages or things like that. So it started to be pretty like a funny situation for me to be in. And then we graduated, and we moved into a more entrepreneurial journey, and created Open Classrooms as a startup company, a mission-driven company whose mission is to make education accessible. And especially professional education leading to jobs and leading to a better employability. So we focus on areas like technology, business, to try to close the skills gap. So it's really a lot around digital transformation, digital jobs, so software engineering, data, IoT, digital marketing, project management, product management, digital, anything around the digital industry we cover, but also more traditional jobs such as like HR, finance, accounting, management, leadership, entrepreneurship, etc. And what we do is basically we create and deliver fully online degree programs at the associate, bachelor's, and master's level directly on Open Classroom. So right now, to give you a rough idea, we train 3 million students a month on 50 degree programs in 130 different countries, in English and French and Spanish, mostly around North America, Europe, and in Africa. So let me give you more details about the pedagogy itself and the programs, because it's quite interesting since we developed the technology, but also the pedagogy. So we became a higher education institution endorsed by the French state, by the Ministry of Higher Education. So we are kind of a college there with degree awarding power. So we can award state-endorsed associate bachelor's and master's degrees. So some of the programs we offer on Open Classrooms have been designed completely by Open Classrooms, or faculty or instructional designers, or video production capabilities, etc. Some of them are in partnership with other institutions. I'm going to dig in more later on that. So what we do is basically degree programs leading to jobs. The pedagogy is what we call competency-based pedagogy, project-driven, and with individual mentorship via video conference. So let me take that piece by piece. So we want to lead to jobs. So let me take an example here. We have a program, a master's degree program on data science. So you want to become a data scientist. It's really a job in high demand, so it's clear there's an outcome here. We start by researching which jobs are in high demand and which competencies are behind those jobs. So we came up with data science. It's not that hard right now to come up with that. And then we study, we interview employers, we crawl job postings, we analyze them, and then we can actually create the set of competencies behind the data scientist role. Then from those competencies, we will create a set of projects. So around 10 different projects. Our programs usually last between 6 to 12 months. They are on an open enrollment basis, so you can start whenever, tonight, in a week, in a month. 12 months might be the reference duration, but you can complete it in 10, in 15, have a break in between. It's very flexible. And you have around 10 projects to complete to be awarded, granted the degree. Projects will assess your competencies. Competencies are not just skills. Competencies are skills, abilities, and knowledge. So there is a very clear and precise definition of what a competency is and what a job is as a set of competencies. Every project that you have to complete will be linked to competencies, and you'll be assessed alongside that. When you complete your project, you're going to validate those competencies, and once every competency has been validated, then you'll get the degree. So a project is basically a case study that you could be asked for in a company. So data science again, imagine you arrive in an insurance company, you have this set of data, you need to explore them, to clean the data, to explore them, to maybe create some algorithm and extract some value out of it. So you have like clear requirements, you have the data set, you have the competencies you'll be assessed against, and you have a list of deliveries you need to actually create. The most important thing in pedagogy is what we call mentorship. So mentorship is basically having an expert in the field coaching you on a one-on-one basis via video conference every single week. So you'll have a data scientist every week via video conference. It's your mentor, so it's the same person from week to week. And you'll discuss with him or her every week. And he or she will set next week's goals, review last week's goals, give you best practices, review your project's progress, maybe re-explain some of the things you may have seen or done in student properly. So it's really your personal coach, an expert in the field, but also will mentor you and kind of help you get to this job. Because he works or she works as a data scientist. So it's quite important. Well, network of mentors is vetted by Open Classrooms, so you need to be selected to get in. You're trained on mentorship. We have actually a full degree program on mentorship. And we rate them, we assess them, we train them, we compensate them, et cetera. But we don't want them to be full-time for working for Open Classrooms. We want them to remain professionals in the field. So they usually coach 5 to 6 students each to make sure that they're still really in the field of their expertise. So you have this mentor every week. So a project might take you from 1 to 2 months to complete. At first, projects are very individual and easy, and that get harder and harder, and you have to work as a group of students. So there is this whole community online, kind of an online campus. So you can ask your questions, you can chat, you can video conference, you have to work as a group of 4 to 8 students on your projects. And every project has to be completed. Your mentor will assess your skills and your competencies on those projects. And then you have to pitch your project, to defend your project in front of another person called the validator, the assessor. So this person is kind of a super mentor. You have to pitch your project, again via video conference, and this defense session will be recorded as a proof of your competencies. It's usually a case study, so that the validator might be playing the role of the client, the manager, or anything that is related to this project. We will reassess, double-check the competencies in those defense sessions. Once you've completed the projects, again, you get the degree at the end. To gain the competencies, you need to achieve the projects. You have access to courses. Courses are non-mandatory. They are basically MOOCs, Massive Open Online Courses. Modules of 10 to 15 hours long, short videos, text content, exercises, quizzes, peer assessment, forums, the course certification, encapsulating all of that. But if you feel like you can achieve the project without the courses, it's fine. You can just demonstrate your skills and your competencies directly in the projects. If you need one course, okay, take one course. If you need the full extent of courses, then you will enroll. Interestingly, since it's a competency-based pedagogy, it means basically if you have the competencies, you'll have the degree. It's as easy as that. But there are many consequences of that. It means if you are in your 40s and you work as a data scientist for a couple of years, but you don't have a college degree, but you can demonstrate your competencies in data science. You don't need to go through courses. You don't need to go to projects. You can leverage the projects you've done during your work experience, professional experience, and you can defend those projects in front of a validator, and then validate your competencies, and then graduate this way. And can be validating the full degree or parts of the degree. So it's also a way to kind of speed up the degree program, because you could have the degree in a couple of months if you have, again, the competencies and the related work experience. If you have any questions, feel free. Yeah.
So when the competencies break down into the courses that are associated with that, are courses, because it sounds like they're described as MOOCs, are they tagged with multiple competencies that cross programs? Are they all situated within, so for example, in your data science example, a statistics course would probably live in, where ideas around statistics would live in that competencies, but it might live in other degree competencies as well. So it's the same course distributed across the platform?
Yep. Indeed. So it's a very good question. It's actually quite a complex pedagogical design, because we are building a graph of competencies with sub-competencies and degree programs on those competencies aligned with jobs. So it means that a course will be linked to sub-competencies, projects will be linked to competencies, and a degree or job will be a set of competencies. So it means if you validate one course, it might validate sub-competencies belonging to several degree programs. So when you have completed a couple of different projects, some projects are actually also shared across different programs. So when you start learning a lot on Open Classrooms, you might be at like 25% of your degree program on digital marketing and 17 on data science, and that's the spirit. Obviously, like usually it's so intense that you only enroll in one program. Because to give you a rough idea, one degree program is between 6 to 12 months. It's about 400 to 1,000 hours of study for students. It's almost full time. So it's usually pretty dense and much longer than what you could see on, I don't know, on Coursera. Let's say specializations are a bit shorter. It's like a couple of courses, maybe with one project, let's say. We have like much heavier programs.
Could you contrast what you're doing to, say, Southern New Hampshire University, and who are the other comparables in the space that you operate in? Is Open University, although they don't think of it as a MOOC, they think of it as online. Just to emphasize what you do.
That's a good question. So I would say, so you could code Coursera Udacity. Sometimes to you understand when I get to university partnerships, or directly a college, like Western Governors or Southern New Hampshire. So we have overlap with all those institutions we just mentioned, but no one is really like doing the same as we do. We are competing on like sub-products of what we do. So Coursera, we have MOOCs, they have MOOCs. They have university partnerships, we have university partnerships. Bottom line, we sell degree programs, they sell degree programs. So in some ways we can be seen as competitors. Although they don't have the pedagogy itself within Coursera. It's not an academic institution. They don't have like faculty, instructional designers, etc. So they're more like a distribution platform, which is very different. So they have like 15 different data science programs. We have only one, because once it's done, what's the point of doing others? If it's great, then we just sell it. So it's quite a strong difference, actually, with Coursera. Udacity is really focused on job outcomes and competencies, and they do create their own content. But they kind of stop working with universities, with academia in general, and are not very interested in moving into the degree world we are. So in that regard, it could be seen as a mix of Coursera, between Coursera and Udacity. We create our own content. We're pretty much like focusing on the tech and digital industry, highly connected with employers with what we call the job guarantee. So we guarantee our graduates a job. So that means if you graduate from classrooms, you're going to get a job within 6 months, or we're going to refund your tuition fees. So that's a pretty strong commitment, and there's no like fine prints that are like kind of crazy. It's just you graduated from the classrooms, you have the right to work in your country. You can go through a coaching, like individual coaching service, career services, that is free, including your tuition fees. And then if you don't find a job, we're going to refund you. So this alignment between higher education and employers' needs is fairly unique. Usually it's quite separated. And the last thing is we're closer to a platform, let's say, because we create programs ourselves, but also with different universities and with industry leaders, like the big tech companies, like Google, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, etc. So similarly to Udacity in this case. So when we compare to one university, it's quite different to this extent. And say there are many universities, so it's hard to say, like to generalize, but usually our pedagogy is fairly different when you dig in. It's rare to have a fully online, competency-based, project-driven, and mentored. The network of mentors is hard to set up and hard to operate with, especially with an open enrollment basis. Because if you have a new student in Australia tomorrow who is French, on a French program, she will need a mentor specialized in data science, speaking French, in the Australian time zone with the same availabilities as she has. And I have to find a mentor within the next 2 days. So this kind of operation is pretty tough to operate.
But if you take Southern New Hampshire, just to take that as an example, they do competency-based, it
Yep.
is online, they do give degrees, they do have mentors.
Yep.
And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's
Yep.
maybe a close cousin to what you do, right?
Yeah, I think there are close cousins, and I think so they don't provide the main differences. I would say I see is they work on their own. We have lots of partnerships, especially with companies and industry leaders. So we have co-branded certifications with industry leaders. The job guarantee is very unique.
So that's because they started as university and went into online. You started as open classrooms.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we are overlapping, but we come from different worlds, I think. But you're right. I mean, I think what they do is amazing. Yeah.
I want to hear a lot more about how you manage this mentor network. Very interesting.
Yeah.
But before I ask that, what compelled you to decide to go for accreditation by France? Why did you feel the need to be a degree granting organization, especially in this current climate of all kinds of certifications and jobs? Maybe degrees aren't necessary.
Great question. So thanks for that. So first of all, we started in France, and the French market and the European market is a bit different from the American one. The education market and the higher education market is a private and public and a highly subsidized market in Europe. So universities in France are almost for free. It costs €300 a year. So it's quite a different system that what you have here. And
We have €300 a day.
thank you.
So was it?
I mean,
so
to be clear, the state pays for it. It doesn't actually cost
Was
300.
that the primary motivation, so you could be in that classification of educational institutions that the state will cover, subsidize?
I wouldn't say so. It's more about recognition in the market, and recognition in the market can come from 3 different things: your brand, the state or accreditation, and employers. And we went after the 3 of them, and we actually tried the degree, and when we've tried it, it worked really well. The growth has been spectacular from the day we started to provide accredited degrees. It was like that, after it was like that. So it was very clear that the impact of having accredited degrees on a product, it doesn't mean you don't have to work with employers or on your brand, but it helps really tremendously. And I would also add that the main question our users kept on asking was, is this degree a real degree? Is this credential recognized? And when we started saying it's actually an academic degree endorsed by the Ministry of Higher Education, the question was answered completely. To be clear, we believe that long-term degrees will change, and since you have the skills gap, huge employers' needs on new jobs, roughly a third of the workforce will need to be reskilled by 2030. That's 1 billion people to be reskilled on digital skills in the next 12 years. We know that credentials, like the credential system, will change, but I think we realize that's going to take some time to change the mindset of employers, of like public funding agencies, of accreditation bodies, of universities, of parents, individuals, etc., etc. So for us, it's more a way to say, hey, actually, you know what? This is a new model, but it's at the same level as other more traditional models. So it's fine. I mean, you can try it. It doesn't mean that we're pretty strong on accreditation itself. I think accreditation will probably remain, but will change quite a lot in the next 10 years. It's going to take some time.
How long have there been large numbers of people out in the workforce with degrees from open classrooms? How have they been received by industry, right, which is sort of ultimately the judge?
Yeah.
And how threatening is it to traditional universities? And I'm particularly thinking about France, although I don't know where your students are, how they're distributed globally.
Good question. So we started on certificate programs. So right now, I think we grant roughly like 200,000 certifications a year. Degrees are much more recent. Like the first degree happened 4 years ago. Then we had like 1 degree, and then 2 degrees, and then 5 degrees, and then now we have like 50 degrees. And since the degree program lasts for like 12 months roughly, you need to wait for a couple of years to have like large cohorts, graduates, and then alumni getting into jobs and being able to really measure like significantly, like statistically significant data. So it's in the thousands of people that we can really track from day one to, okay, they got a job in this company with this job title, with this salary, etc. Interestingly, in France, where accreditation assessment requires us to track the job placement rate, and we're strongly assessed against that. So if we have a job placement rate below 70%, we're going to lose our accreditation. That's very, very straightforward. So that's why it's really focused on job outcomes. And so that's for the degrees, but certificates were already useful to get a job. They might be less strong than a full like master's or bachelor's, but still it helps to have like an Amazon certificate to find a job in like cloud related roles.
So I think this is wonderful. It makes complete sense to me, in part because of the temperament of some students whom this I think is really well suited.
Yeah.
So, one practical question, is everything available in English?
And French and a bit Spanish. So, and the main 2 languages are English and French.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next question is, do you publish metrics around, success rates? And do you measure these? So for example, Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, Harvard, I think, would claim them as successes, even though they didn't complete,
Yeah, that's right.
their degrees. So, students get jobs maybe before they finish their degree or something. Does that count as success from your perspective?
Very good question, and a tough one, to be honest, because the definition of success is not really a standard. There is no standard for that right now. So we have a standard of assessing the job placement rate after 6 months after graduation. And the French accreditation system is pretty old school when it comes to jobs, so you need to have a limited work contract, not a short-term work contract. If you're a freelancer, it doesn't count, it's not a job or anything like that, so it's very strict. So this is well defined, even though it might be kind of stupid sometimes. In terms of completion from start to graduation, that's right. It's a metric, but is it the right metric? Because some people might drop out and find a job. So is it a success or not? We can debate. I think it's a success if we meet the student's goal. Some of them also enter those programs, even though there are education to employment programs, without the need to find a job. So we are very much focused on making sure we are going to place you into a job, but if you don't want to find a job, you're likely not to find one. So it's a tough question, and we have metrics. Yeah, basically like our job placement rate is between 70% to 100% depending on the programs. We have like demographics, we have everything you might need. Completion rate also vary tremendously depending on the learner's engagement. So at the course level, the MOOC level, it's like the usual, 15%, 10% of completion, so it's 15 on average on open classrooms. But again, it's because basically it's like so easy to get in a MOOC. You click and you're in. And many of them actually don't want to complete the course and just watch one video and just go. But when you take only degree students, this goes up to 90%. So it depends on the group you analyze. And for job placement rate, I can also introduce another concept I haven't talked about called the apprenticeship programs. It's basically we created the job guarantee to make sure you're going to get a job at the end of the program. And then we started having employers coming to us and asking us, I need 10 data scientists. Could you introduce me to your graduates or to your students? And we're like, you know what? Like every data science student has already found a job. I mean, it's so much in high demand that it's too late. And we started actually to create a talent supply chain, to create a group of students who are hired from day one of the program. So we start with the employer's needs, the number of jobs, the location, the competencies, the time frame. We created company-tailored curriculum. We find students, we pre-qualify them. They go through the employer's hiring process. And then they're hired as apprentices under an apprenticeship work contract. So when you're an apprentice or a student in an apprenticeship contract, from day one of your training, you have a work contract, you have a salary, tuition fees are covered by the company, and you have this work and study program. So it's a bit longer, but you work 4 days a week, and you're trained on open classrooms for 1 day a week. And the work you do during your work days will be recognized and will grant you credits, will validate your projects and your competencies academically, so it will help achieve your curriculum. Usually a bit longer, like 12 to 24 months, but at the end you get this academic degree, tuition fees non-existent for students. And it's a great deal for employers because they create the talent they need, exactly what they need with the right competencies. And in this case, the completion rate and the job placement rate, so the job placement rate is 100%. It's not that hard because you start literally with the work contract. The completion is about 90%. So it really depends how you measure that. If you take into account like MOOC students or apprenticeship students or degree students, we have students who spend 1,000 hours on open classrooms and students who spend just half an hour. You cannot expect somebody to find a job after half an hour compared to those ones who stay for a year.
Excuse me. What kind of competencies were more often required or identified in the study?
So you have like two main sets of competencies, I would say. Some are technical stuff, data science, and some are closer to what we call soft skills. So it could be working in a team, critical thinking, to know how to learn, leadership, etc. So we created courses for that because it's actually a very strong employer's need. And we incorporated those skills. They are soft skills, but they are still skills. So they are part of our set of competencies in the degree programs we offer. So you have to demonstrate your ability to learn, to lead a team, to lead a meeting, etc., etc. Actually, the very first course of every program is a course called Learn How to Learn, which is very good, by the way.
Do these competencies, do they repeat experience in different contexts?
Yeah, so they are transversal as well across different programs. If you know how to lead a meeting, let's say, be able to lead a meeting in data science or in digital marketing, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. So I can tell you a little bit more about the university partnerships we have. The partnerships we have also with tech companies, public employment agencies, and we can also talk a bit more about accreditation and US developments, if you will. So I'm going to restart on university partnerships. So I mentioned we tend to choose areas connected to the digital industry mostly. We work in partnership with universities to co-design programs. So right now, we started the partnership with Stanford University. We are gonna create a master's program on like leadership and data and digital. It's gonna be taught by Stanford faculty, but we will bring our pedagogy and our expertise in instructional design. So it's going to be the same pedagogy as the one I mentioned, competency-based, project-driven, mentored, etc. And this is like co-design. And after we distribute it on open classrooms in a co-branded way, and we share the associated revenue. So in this regard, like sometimes we see universities at first thinking we're what we call an OPM, Online Program Manager, so like Pearson, Wiley, 2U, or others. But we don't act as a white label provider. We are a brand within the course, within the curriculum. Sometimes we actually have like joint degrees or co-branded degrees, depending on the partnership. So we act more as an academic partner, like universities partner with foreign universities sometimes. It's kind of the same for us. So in this regard, we are pretty different from like OPMs. Yes?
So when you co-create a program with
Yep.
a university, say whatever topic you decide to do it in, now you will not create another program with any other university because
On the same
on the same
topic. Yeah.
topic?
Yeah, same level, same topic, and same language. Well, yeah, that's right.
Just one quick, in the case of the Stanford partnership, who is issuing the degree?
That's a good question. So in Stanford case, it's a certificate from Stanford plus a degree from Open Classrooms. So it's 2 credentials being granted at the end. 1 US certificate by Stanford, 1 degree, European credential by Open Classrooms. And it is interesting in when you want to tap in international markets to have credentials in specific markets, and especially in Europe, since public funding on apprenticeship, vocational training, or higher education is tied to accreditation, and I mean local accreditation. So when you have a US degree, even though it's from the MIT or Stanford, it's so great, but in Europe, you can't really fund it. It's much harder. So the market you address is much smaller than the one you can address with local credentials. So that's interesting to see that on some programs we start having several credentials or at least several accreditation on the same product. And that is pretty tricky to align different accreditation frameworks and all that. So we can dig in that if you like.
You know, there's a great quote from Steve Jobs. He said, "Why would you join the Navy if you could be a pilot?" Right? So I'm going to sort of ask you a philosophical question, which is, why would you go to be cool if you could do this?
So most of our students are not young people in their 18s or early 20s. When they are non-traditional students, school dropouts, people with disabilities, or living in very remote areas, things like that. So I would say it's mostly working for lifelong learners. When you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you want to switch careers, etc., etc. I'm biased in that, although if I were 18 again and I was about to choose like my college education, I would probably go to a college myself, like on campus, I mean, because the campus experience is not just the degree, it's also kind of the social experience, the international experience, face-to-face, etc., etc. So there are many other things I believe you can get on a campus. But like you can flip the question. It's like if you do not provide anything else than videos and a stamp, you're going to be out of business, as a university. So I do believe that the face-to-face college education is really wider than that. I think we should do both. And I think that in the future, you'll see multimodal education and pedagogies. And so you might start like face-to-face, full-time on campus, but maybe in your third year, you might start having like a third online and 2/3 face-to-face, and maybe you're gonna go walking and at the same time still study online and then go back to campus, etc. So maybe right now I want to go back to campus, and have I don't know, MBA or PhD or something like that. So I think we should give students and lifelong learners really the choice to pick and choose what they like. It's very rare for students to say, I'm not sure I'm going to go to Open Classrooms or this campus. It's more like I have actually no choice but to choose something like Open Classrooms because there is no university around me. I don't have time. I have my kids. I have my work, etc., etc. So there is no alternatives. So that's about university partnerships. Then we have partnerships with tech companies, which are pretty much the same, but with industry leaders. So we co-design degree programs, and they can co-brand them, and they can also grant industry certification. So this like Microsoft certification, let's say. So we will soon actually start having programs leading to an academic degree, an industry certification, and a job. Three of that combined into one product. And the good stuff about tech companies is that they can actually leverage their ecosystem and their clients and their partners and make them commit to hire those graduates and students on internship, apprenticeship, or full-time jobs at the end of the program. So quite interesting to see that. I think there will be more and more connections and relationships between employers, especially when they struggle to find talent, and the academic world and the training providers in general. Then partnerships with public employment agencies. So we have lifelong learners. They can be employed, they can be freelancers, entrepreneurs, or they can be job seekers. So unemployed, and they want to switch careers. They want to have the right competencies to find a job. And we work with about 20 different governments, with usually the Ministry of Labor, to provide free certifying courses to job seekers, to help them find and train on the hard skills or the soft skills as well, to find a good job. This is actually part of our philanthropic initiatives. So we have a nonprofit arm called openclassrooms.org, which funds that. Also, like partnerships with NGOs for like refugees or underprivileged population. So it's quite interesting to watch this space. I think because the scale you can achieve is pretty significant. In some countries, we train like tens of thousands of job seekers, and you can track also the job placement quite easily with the public employment agency. So interesting to mention that. And the last piece we could spend a few minutes on is the accreditation. So I started to kind of scratch the surface of that. So we have accreditation in France right now, which is fairly good and gives also equivalencies across Europe and more through what we call the Bologna process. So it gives equivalencies across 50 different countries. So if you have a bachelor's degree in France, you can go to Germany and say this university, I got this French bachelor's, can I get in this master's program? And that's fine. And right now we're building also the same accreditation stack in the UK, in the US, and we will probably start in Africa as well. It is a big mess, I'm going to be honest with you, because we want to have on one product several accreditations. And accreditations in one country tend to be already very complex. So when you mix like very different regulatory environments together, it gets really tricky. Like the main challenges we face are the following. So first of all, some accreditation systems don't allow online education. So it's face-to-face only. Then it's usually based on clock hours and credits, but competencies, not so much, or it's rare. So in the US, you can have accreditation on clock hour, credits and somewhat competencies, but if you transform them into credits. So at the end of the day, it's credits. And for Title IV, so access to like Pell Grants and student loans, it is credits only or clock hour, which is a good system because it's easy to track and to make sure that there is no bad apples. But at the end of the day, you pay because you spend like 1,000 hours in a classroom. Was it like worth it, or did it bring you like competencies and job or like education just in general? Maybe yes, maybe no, but it's unclear. But actually, when you move into like the competency-based mindset, it's great. I mean, everybody, I think, might not argue that it's great to have competencies at the end as outcomes, and especially because, again, competencies are not just skills, they are also knowledge and abilities, so it's much wider. So it could be critical thinking, let's say. But it's actually hard to measure that and to measure the progress that the institution brought you from your competencies before, your competencies after, and to pay like a certain amount corresponding to the difference of like what you have at the end and what you had at the beginning.
So my question is about that specifically. You talk about this sort of these projects being assessed by a validator. How are they assessing your competency? Is it A, B, C, D? Is it pass-fail? Is it you achieve this competency, you haven't? Is it contextualized in the program? So that sort of small piece, I guess. And then you've talked a couple of times about this idea of the pedagogies being the sort of thing that is of value, is the whole system.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you've made any connections between how you answer this sort of competency development being connected with the actual pedagogy process itself. Do you have any evidence to suggest that what you're doing actually is in fact improving those individual maybe sub-competencies?
Yeah. So first question, the competencies are not contextualized. So if you validate a competency in one program, it's going to be validated in any program. It's pass or fail or like partially fail, but you need to retake it until you pass it completely. So there is no grading system in the sense like you don't have like ABC or other grading scale. But this is very precise though. You have like competencies, sub-competencies, and like very precise assessment framework for validators and QA processes, etc., etc. And for your second question, can you ask it again? Sorry.
Do you have any
connection to
evidence that
I got
sort
it.
of connects the pedagogy and the process with
Yep.
outcome?
Yeah. So academically, or pedagogy is basically based on what we call competency-based education, mastery learning. So parts of the work we use and leverage is Benjamin Bloom's work. So academic researcher in educational sciences who basically proved that the mastery learning combined with individual tutorship, mentorship is probably the most effective pedagogy. And we embedded competency-based pedagogy within that. Then to really answer like scientifically your question, so we do work with research labs on that, on learning analytics, but it all comes down to what is the student's success, so your question. And since this answer is still weak, but not for open classrooms, just in general in the ecosystem, it's hard. Like I'm a scientist, so I cannot say, yeah, we tick the box and it's already done. It's a challenge to answer that question, I think.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but thank you so much, Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you.